concept of the series came, to life?
Yeah, I was approached by Fox, who was looking at their iconic films and wondering how they could, what they could capitalize on after the success of Bates Motel or Hannibal or those kind of, is there a way to bring this character of Damien Thorne back to life, and so they just said, what would you do if you could make a show based on the Omen? That's all they said. And so I said, well, I would love to take that character and see what he's like now. That's an iconic character. But I wanted to put my own twist on it so that it would play as a complex character drama.
So where did the decision come to kind of disregard the second two movies?
You know what? I felt that by the time you're at the end of the second movie, Damien is fully aware that he's evil and that he has a task, and we start to get into a rhythm where people are suspicious and he just sort of looks at them funny and then they get killed in an accident. Okay, and I just felt that would be like a repeating storyline that would not give me that wouldn't allow me to tell the story that I wanted to tell, which was that this guy is the Antichrist. He's sort of a mirror version of Christ. And Christ is, as a Catholic, I was taught Christ is fully human and fully divine. And I wanted a character that was fully human and fully evil, and he's wrestling with that. And that seemed to me the way to create a show. So even though I'm a fan of those other movies, I felt like they told that story, and I wanted to go back and just tell a different story.
Does Damien, this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but does Damien end up finding love? Can he love? Is that something that might be explored?
That's a great question. Look at what's already happening in the show, what happens in the first episode. He can't, because if he brings somebody close, he puts them in danger. But in the first episode, we see he has a relationship with this woman, Kelly. He casts her out to save her, and she still ends up dead. He has no good choices. And that's part of the drama of his life. He's lonely, and the only people who seem to get close to him are people that he really can't trust. John Lyons and Rutledge. These are the people who understand the type of malevolent forces around him. And they're not really good people for him to have in his life. So that's part of his dilemma.
Thanks.
Scott, would you say that John and Anne are working together? Are they friends? Are they frenemies? What's kind of the relationship?
I think that they're very suspicious of each other. They're very jealous of each other, and that they are both after the same thing, and that's to control the devil. And that's a pretty slippery slope. This might be right down to but they do interact with each other, and there's some great scenes coming up that we have. She's a wonderful actress, and it's wonderful to work with. So it's a lot of fun. I think the audience will have some fun with what's coming up.
We've already seen some attempts to stop Damien's destiny from happening. Are those things going to get harder and harder to deal with? Like you mentioned, the Vatican getting involved at some point. So is his life just going to get further and further at risk?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's the story. As he. In a way, the first episode activates him, and so maybe some people didn't take this seriously. Some people have been waiting for it. All of this, and now all those forces come into play. And in the third episode, Anne Rutledge explains there's all these different factions and all of that, and there's it's going to be interesting, and that's really, I would say, part of the overall design of the entire series. That you can always, people have different viewpoints of what's going on, people have different agendas, and as we start building those people around, it puts more and more pressure on Damien, and he wants to break away from all that and be his own man, which he really can't, because he's a puppet for Satan in a sense. So it's that adds to the drama, and that is definitely something that it's a vital part of our story.
There's a trend right now on TV. We've seen series like Constantine, Lucifer. How do you keep distance from these kind of shows to try to make something really original?
Well, I think we're more serialized than those other shows. I think those shows sort of are established, and you have a type of character, and then they just sort of continue that type of storytelling every episode. We're talking about a process. We're talking about a journey from beginning to end, in which a guy does not want to be a dictator. A guy does not want to destroy the world, and yet he's going on a path no matter what he does to try to stop it. So that's, and it's a matter of who comes in and who tries to stop him and who tries to help him and all of that. So I think we're more of a, I think we have a longer story to tell, and I'll say this, that particularly if you are watching the show, just as soon as you figure out what the show is, we throw it out and we reinvent the show. And I think that this show, more than any other show I've done, takes chances. So just as you think, oh, it's this type of show, we turn that upside down, and then you settle into another groove, and then we throw that out. Right. And so I think the show reinvents itself at least 4 times during these 10 episodes, and it's something that I think we brought a lot of talented writers in. It's something I've thought about doing on other shows, and so this one, is we're taking chances with storytelling. So, I hope you like it.
What are some of the biggest chances that you think you're taking in storytelling?
You'll see them when you'll know them when you see them. But I think just as I don't think we save anything. I think we burn story, as an aggressive type of storytelling, and I think the show gets incredibly dark in an emotional way, which is a little more disturbing than just the deaths or something like that. I don't think that there's certainly a high level of violence and scares and that type of horror. But there's also, I think, it's a psychological thriller as well, and we kind of push this character into really dark places, and those are coming up, and then it'll be interesting to see how he everything he tries doesn't work, and he has to keep getting more and more desperate, and we're pushing him as far as we can.
Can you talk about how you put your writer's room together, and kind of why you chose the writers that you chose?
Sure. We actually had 2 writers' rooms, because the show was originally picked up for 6 episodes. So I hired a number 2 writer named Mark Kruger, who's a huge horror fan and just a sweet guy and everything, and just perfect. That's a really difficult role for any writer in Hollywood. I've been a number 2, and they're hard to find. So Mark was fantastic, and then I had 4 staff writers, 2 men, 2 women, and I really wanted all of my assistants were women, so I had a large female presence on our staff. I think that's really important. I think there's, I don't know if I want to talk about it now, but I think there's a large female energy in this show, and you'll certainly see it by the end. I think there's some, all of our female characters are on stage in very interesting ways, and you'll see that in the last few episodes and stuff. So that wasn't why I hired those women. They were just great writers. So then we wrapped that just as we started shooting the pilot, or episode 1, and then we were picked up for more episodes. So I brought Mark back, I brought back one of the staff writers, and then I brought on 2 other writers. So I brought back Casey Perry, who was one of the staff writers. She's fantastic. And then I brought back this woman who I had worked with, and a guy named Richard Haddam, who had worked on Witches of East End or something like that. And he wrote episode 6, and I think it was one of the best pitches I ever heard in a room. I mean, I've never seen a pitch like that pitched out in my entire career. And I just said, go write it. And I didn't touch that script. I just gave notes or whatever. It was the first script that, as a showrunner, I did not polish, I think. I mean, it was pretty great. And I'm talking about all 4 shows I've run. So I really feel like the staff the writing staff got it. They rose to the occasion. They pushed me as a writer, and I really loved working with them. So I was, very mindful of the dynamics, and they saved my ass a lot.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
When looking at the original films, was there anything that you specifically steered away from when creating Damien? Like, were there any aspects from the Omen that you wanted to steer clear of?
No, I wanted this to feel like a continuation. If anything, we took some elements. I guess I could give this out. We really thought about the world that Damien's in. So, for example, when Mrs. Baylock says she's from the agency sent me when she arrives, we started thinking, well, who's that agency? Well, that agency is this guy, and when we learned that Anne met Mrs. Baylock, so we wanted to be tied into that mythology. We have the daggers, and we really thought about where did those daggers come from, who made those daggers, and we actually did something that I'll say, we added to that mythology. In the Book of Revelation, there are 7 original churches. So what you'll find is that each dagger is named for one of those churches, and so we've added this mythology. Where are the daggers? Who has the daggers? Which daggers are missing? Which daggers are being stolen? All of this is now in play. So we just said, what's the story with the daggers? And we deepened that backstory. So we really, I think, took what we could from the original film. And getting back to your question, I felt that the original film was rich enough for us to pull from. It gave us everything we needed that, without trying to, I guess what I want to say is that, by episode 3 or 4, Damien becomes its own entity, and we knew we needed to not just keep retelling that story over and over. So we took what we needed and then started telling our own story.
We have
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We have this little reunion of Walking Dead now with you guys. So how different it was this time around?
Well, it's a different world.
No ponytail.
I didn't have to use crutches. I don't know what he has in store for me.
I like you on those crutches, so we'll see.
So it's fun. I mean, I love working with you.
We have a great time.
Any paranormal or weird occurrences that have gone on set that made you go, okay, it could be as a result of this?
Yeah, this is true. We had a thing with birds. And in episode 2, we have a bird crash into a stained glass window. And just before we were filming that, a couple days before, I heard something smash into my window in my living room, but it was within my living room, and there was a bird there. And I don't know how a bird would get in my house. I mean, all the windows and doors were shut. I picked up the bird, and the bird died in my hand. And then a few hours later, there was a different bird of a different species on the other side of the room, and that was dead. So I thought that was weird. Then we had a director who was jogging, and he was attacked by crows. We had an owl eat a rat or something right when we filmed, that church scene when he goes into the church. But crew's standing over there watching this giant owl in the middle of Toronto eat like a pigeon or something, or a rat, and blood spilling all over the place. We have one of our writers, Casey Perry, has had 2 birds crash into her windows. We had another guy found a dead bird on his doorstep, or a line producer, or one of our co-executive producers. And so if somebody did a count, we had about 15, 16 different incidents where birds were meeting horrible deaths around Damien crew members. So that's weird. Right? So I don't know what to make of it, but
Stop looking at birds.
Yeah, you'll see. And in the show there is a bird motif. If you watch what we're showing later, we've got a couple of birds in this episode.
You can add
4.
another bird story.
Oh,
we have this cat that's trying to adopt us,
yeah.
and he brings these birds. I'm walking in one day, and I look down at the mat, and there's this thing. It looks like a voodoo curse or something. It's displayed on my doormat. And I said, what is it? Then I figured out this guy's trying to adopt us. He brought us a trophy. He wants to, he wants us to pat him on the back.
Actually, I did that. No.
Now, you said the show's going to be becoming more emotional. Are there going to be any more characters that you're expecting the audience to connect with, or you would like them to connect with?
Say that again?
You said the show's going to be becoming more emotional. You're going to be introducing more characters that we'll be connecting with.
To be honest, most of the characters are introduced. We did something different here where, episode 1 really focused on Damien, and we just introduced Barbara's character in one scene. And then she comes to the forefront in episode 2 and episode 3. Scott's character is introduced in episode 3. Robin Weigart's was introduced. David. We took our time. A lot of pilots try to crowd everyone on stage. We start rolling it out, but now the audience has met everybody. But now it'll be interesting to see how their different agendas coincide or clash or whatever. So I think you'll see how those characters develop and how their arcs. Certainly, Simone and Almani become, major characters. They're just introduced now, but they have major storylines, and you'll see all of that. So I would say